intimate conversations with wedding professionals as they share their stories, insights, and tips from inside the wedding industry. We'll chat about how to be authentic and that it's okay not to be perfect or run your business like someone else's Instagram. Let's dive into the privilege it is to serve our clients and discover the talented creatives that make up our community. When we share what we know and who we are, we better serve our couples as a wedding day team, as well as each other. Simply put, Be Fabbo. Now here's your host, Bobby Brinkman.
Hey Fabbo Podcast listeners, welcome to episode 31. I'm super excited to have you joining us today. We've got a fun episode coming up. Lots of times you guys ask me to bring you topics that don't necessarily just mean listening to a photographer or a florist, but you want something a little bit broader that works more with vendors and more with engaged couples. So today I've listened and I'm thrilled to have on the podcast today for this episode the creative dynamic duo, the forces behind Bustld. That's Bustld. Let me tell you a little bit about this dynamic couple. When they set out, I think it's been about 3 years now, they wanted to create a modern, simple, transparent resource for engaged couples that would provide local inspiration and access to the best local vendors in each market. And these guys are now across like 4 or 5 markets. I'll get more details into that. And of course, in show notes, Tina will link to all those individual markets for you. But they knew that they wanted a couple to remember and still have a lot to do with their wedding planning experience. And they wanted to make sure they could match these couples with the best vendors for them. And Ryan, the tech guy behind this dynamic duo, has come up with some great information. I think you're all going to really find it insightful. And I think it's something that helps set Bustld apart from some of the other marketing publishing companies that are out there. And Sammy works in the wedding industry. She's been a wedding planner, and she's still currently working in the industry. And I always say it's so easy to take advice from somebody who's actually working in the industry and is out there like all of us in the trenches every weekend working. So their Bustld site at bustld.com, and then of course all their Instagram sites, you're going to find that they have vetted vendors that offer everything from planning to venues to florists to anything that you're going to need to plan your wedding. They're going to have that on their website. They bring a personalized experience by comparing your answers and to the wedding vendors. They actually have a quiz, guys, that the couples fill out, and it matches. Ryan's come up with this, like I said, amazing technology that helps match you as an engaged couple to vendors that fit your profile. And again, think about it, vendors. We're always looking to try to find our ideal client and our ideal couple. And these guys have really, narrowed that path to help that get done. They do a lot of the work for you. They fill out these information, and they take what you're putting in, and they take the tips and the trends, and they're matching all that so that it becomes easier for vendors to be connected with engaged couples, thus keeping engaged couples happy by finding an amazing Fabbo Wedding Day team, and also by keeping their paid subscription vendors happy by keeping them busy. And in today's market where you can advertise on a lot of different venues and there's a lot of people that want to take wedding pros money, these guys have some stats to back up why working and being part of the Bustld program can give you some significant return of investment. Their mission statement is pretty simple. They really, really wanted to build Bustld on bringing truth and transparency to the wedding industry to reduce the chaos and finding the right vendors and wedding inspiration for your wedding day. Through the interview, you're going to hear them talk a little bit about how they each got into this industry and how their backgrounds bring them together and what it's like working as a husband and wife team. So it's a really fun interview. We have some laughs in there. And it's just one of those things that I think is going to help engage couples that are listening to let you know that you can find a qualified professional vendors in your market. And they recently just launched Bustld Atlanta, which everybody that wants to get married in Atlanta knows it's a really big market. So now the Atlanta vendors are going to be able to reach engaged couples in a more streamlined way. And again, it's just Ryan's come up with this unique approach to how to match what the couples are needing versus what the vendors can offer. As I mentioned, they also have Bustld Low Country, and that encompasses Charleston, Hilton Head, Beaufort, and Savannah. They also have the Carolinas, so if you're getting married in Myrtle Beach or the Outer Banks, or you're a vendor that works in these areas, these are some areas that they specialize in. There's also Bustld Triangle, and there's the big, one of my favorite cities in the world, Asheville. So they have Bustld for that area as well, and they also have Midland, South Carolina. So they're really honing in on some of these wonderful cities. They're based and they live in Charlotte. So they've got some good southern weddings they can bring you. But the thing that I think you're going to find out engaged couples is when you go visit their website is they're not just showing you trends for that area. They're not just saying this is what this market looks like. They're showing weddings that cross the gamut. They're same-sex weddings. They're interracial weddings. They're very inclusive, and they want everybody that's getting married to find their story. They want to make sure that when couples come to look at Bustld, they are seeing themselves on their website and in their Instagram, and they know that they have vetted vendors on their program that are willing to work with you and that are thrilled to work with you, whether you're a same-sex couple, interracial couple, or whatever kind of wedding you're having, from an Indian wedding to an Irish wedding. The Bustld Wedding Pros are there, and they accept all love stories. And they also have submissions. So as wedding pros, we're always looking for an outlet to get our work seen, and they make that easy to you via Two Bright Lights, or you can also directly go to their website and submit your wedding. So wedding pros, they offer lots of impact for your investment. So I encourage anyone who's working these areas to reach out and see if you become part of the program and engage couples that are looking to planning destination weddings in these markets. This is a great place to start. So without further ado, everybody, I'm thrilled to welcome Ryan and Sammy Roberts to the program, to this episode. And again, everybody, sit back. Don't worry about taking a lot of notes. Kind of just listen to their story and tips. We'll get all those notes and connections to you in the show notes. Tina will make sure you can find every little market you're looking for. So everybody, once again, I'm thrilled to introduce you to the Fabbo, Ryan, and Sammy Roberts. All right, podcast listeners, as I told you, you are in for a treat. I have got Sammy and Ryan Roberts here of Bustld. And I think it's going to be a great hour. We're going to dive into some great conversations. You guys have sent in some lovely questions for these guys. And, you know, these guys are industry pros. So they're like me. They're going to come at you with a really candid answer. So hopefully you guys are prepared to get some truth and some honest, some things about the wedding industry that's going on right now. I couldn't think of two better people to kick off this publication, a little bit serious, that I wanted to bring to you guys. So without further ado, everybody, this is Sammy and Ryan of Bustld. Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having us on today.
No problem. And just for our listeners, you know, we do have two people there. So Sammy and Ryan, both introduce yourself a little bit, maybe give us a background, and then we'll talk about the craziness of being a husband and wife team working in the wedding industry.
Okay, perfect. I'm Sammy, and my background is in the publication, PR, wedding planning side. So I worked for PR and event company in New York before moving to Charlotte and launching my own wedding planning company, which obviously was a good starting point for Bustld. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, and I'm Ryan Roberts. I came from a very different background than weddings, but I came from data and technology, where I would help big companies make sure they weren't doing business with terrorists and narco traffickers and crazy stuff. But we kind of parlayed that into a lot of what we've done with the site and strategic things as well.
Gosh, I mean, but you know what? In today's world, sadly, we have to know how to do that too. As owning a wedding business, and who would have known that? I mean, but the world we live in, we all have to protect ourselves. As silly as the wedding industry is, and you know, people sometimes think of us as, oh, you're just used car salespeople. We still have to protect ourselves and get there and do that. So that brings us to, you guys were individually, and then you guys started Bustld together, and then explain to our listeners why it's called Bustld and exactly what Bustld does, and then how you guys came together to form that.
Well, the kind of is a play, as far as the name goes, it's a play on bustling your dress. So we kind of played around with a bunch of different logos and names, and I don't even know at this point how it came to be, but we debated over so many things, and
like the E or no E.
Yeah, and decided to, it was the one, I guess being a husband-wife team, you kind of, have your own arguments, and this was the one name we agreed upon together. So it was the one that stuck, and Ryan, being the tech guy, thought we should drop the E to be just a little edgier and cooler. And so that's how we ended up with it. But tell them a little bit about what we do.
Yeah. So we at Bustld, we started this company because as Sammy was growing her company so rapidly, as I'm sure you do, Bobby, and listeners do as well, talk with their friends and family about it all the time. And we just kept seeing a lot of gaps in the industry that we felt needed to be filled. One of the things that really struck us is that everything kind of, especially when it comes to finding your vendor team, everything felt sort of transactional. It didn't feel relationship based like you would normally find in the wedding industry. At least that's what one of the things we love about the wedding industry. So we really set out to disrupt it and do something different and help not just couples but vendors as well find their ideal counterpart.
And the good thing about that is, I think we always need somebody outside the wedding industry that's going to help us find, how it is, you find a niche, and that's why you start your company. So having somebody outside the industry come in, you get to bring a whole separate, view and point into where Sammy was in the wedding world every day and sees all the ups and downs. You can sit from a side point and go, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Why are you having these problems? Let's figure out a way to get better people finding your couples, and also you being able to work with better vendors. So I think that is a perfect thing. So tell our listeners when you guys started it, and I know you're based in Charlotte, is that correct? But then you have multiple markets that you guys are working in?
Yeah, so we officially launched a little over 3 and a half years ago, although the idea has been around for probably closer to 5. We worked on it for a good year and a half before we actually launched. And so we started in Charlotte specifically. So obviously we knew our hometown, and so we wanted to really start here and get feedback from couples and vendors and create a product that people really wanted. So we focused in there, expanded across North Carolina,
city by city,
about a year and a half ago, and then expanded into South Carolina at the beginning of this year, and Georgia just recently, which we're very excited about.
Oh, exactly. And being in Georgia, I live in Georgia, and, but I also service the areas that the markets that you guys do. So I think it's great. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot is there a massive difference? And you guys especially should have a viewpoint. Are you seeing different types of vendors, different sizes of couples in these markets? And so that's another reason why you found that there's a niche in each of these markets that you guys can fill, because they're vastly different.
Yeah, surprisingly, so much more different than even I was expecting kind of setting out. We knew we wanted to be hyper local in our approach, just because we feel like there's not a lot where you can find inspiration for your specific market. But they're all similar in some ways, but it's interesting that each set of couples and vendors kind of has their own struggles, and it's been really, really cool to learn that, I think.
Yeah, and one thing kind of to add on top of that, the local piece in general, and something that we do that is different, is that we feature weddings and styled shoots that are native to that area. So we don't necessarily subscribe to one set style, right? When you go to a place like Charleston, everything tends to skew more bright and airy, right? And then if you go to the mountains, it tends to skew more dark and moody. And then other places, it kind of has a blend. Our belief is couples generally know where they want to get married. So then we should showcase weddings and style shoots from that area so they can kind of pick and choose what they like.
Well, especially, Sammy, you can attest to this, especially just because you're getting married in the South. My God, there's 5,000 versions of a Southern wedding.
Yes, there is. And now so many people are coming to the South to get married, and they're not even Southern. So that's like a whole nother set of different types.
And I try to stick to the 30 weddings a year because I'm that old broad that, does. I don't want to keel over at somebody's wedding. So if you're listening, I don't plan on keeling over your wedding. However, I've been around for 37 years. I got the photo part down to a science. It's just some of you guys bring some of the weirdest stuff to my head that keeps it exciting. But it's like, I very seldom ever have a local couple anymore. Even if I go to Charlotte and do a wedding, they're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Or even in Savannah, the Savannah couples are heading more to Charleston, and some are coming down here to the Golden Isles, but very few people. So you guys are offering that platform where, hey, I'm getting married in Charleston. Let me look. And the good thing, one of the things that I really because I really dove into looking in the Charlotte area and the Charleston area for you guys, just so I have a better knowledge when I ask that question. That's the thing that is so good about it is you aren't showing every single lot. I do not see pistachio pink skies and green. I'm seeing the talents of the vendors that are utilizing you, and you're actually telling them, hey, it's okay to be different and be you. And that is something in the publication world we are not seeing right now.
Yeah. And that's something we really wanted to set ourselves apart. And, whether you're having a $5,000 wedding or a $500,000 wedding, we want to showcase that because it's all different. It's all beautiful. It's all special. So we really like showing like all different types of publications and vendors and people that can make your day possible. And so I think that's so important in the wedding industry.
Right, because these destination couples are looking for that. When we talk about vendors, we'll dive in a little bit. We'll kind of jump over listeners a little bit just because these guys are great at having a conversation, and I actually love that. Not knocking any, but sometimes, it's hard. You guys send in some questions and they don't always flow right. So we'll jump over just a little bit. But when vendors come to seek you out, do you guys have some fairly strict guidelines? Or if I just wrote you a check, can I be a vendor?
No, it's a great question. So one of our beliefs is that we want to work with professionals because we continually hear that from our couples that their number one fear is they hire someone that doesn't deliver. And that's scary. It's your wedding. Like it's one of the most important days of your life.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Planning.
Exactly. Yeah. And you look at photos and things could be coming from a workshop and you have no idea. So one of the things that we take very seriously is actually vetting every vendor that's on our site. So we look at a number of things like quality of work. We look at making sure that vendors are charging reasonable rates. We make sure that they've completed a certain number of weddings. We really do kind of pay attention to those things. And a couple other things as well. Like we actually interview every single vendor before they come onto Bustld. It's very, very time consuming, but it's very, very worthwhile.
I think it's something that makes it really different. It's not just anyone who can write a check. Right. And I'm sure we'll touch on this, but you can't even pay to be on the top. We actually created a matching algorithm. So our vendors who are on the site are matched to you based on fit, and we're vetting them. So we're definitely trying to create like a more boutique experience so that couples know that when they come to Bustld, that they're hiring someone they can trust. And that's really our goal. That's what we heard from couples, and we really wanted to deliver on that.
Well, especially because we're in a destination market. Susie from Chicago has no idea that the Charleston venue downtown Riverfront really isn't downtown Riverfront. It's 3 blocks over, and she doesn't understand what exactly a plantation wedding is. And if I was just going to be logging on and doing plantation weddings in Charleston, it can be somebody's backyard that has a big house that has 2 acres. And we all know in this industry, and especially Sammy, because I'm sure that you've had to work with people in your career that you're like, man, you just took this couple's check. You have no idea what to do. And then you're left trying to, and when it's an area that you can't help in, like you can't just go, okay, let me make you 500 flowers right now. I can go pull something off a tree and do it, but you also can't get behind a camera and get something done fast.
So, no, that is definitely not my specialty. So,
it lifts everybody up. You're setting it up for successful, not just for the couples that, choose to come through and look at your vetted vendors, but as a wedding professional, 37 years, I want to know that even though you just started a year ago, that you actually are going to show up and you understand that you better not have your earphones in when you're, putting flowers out, walking down the aisle or doing something. So it's a win-win for everybody that comes on. And your clients that are looking for you I know that you're only putting out there trusted people that did not pay for a placement.
Exactly. So we definitely want to make sure that our clients realize that we're vetting these people, and it's not just anyone and everyone kind of thing.
Yeah. And actually to tell a little bit of a story, that's really where the idea of Bustld stemmed from. Is Sammy actually had a wedding, I guess it's been a while now, but this was before, you had your own personal vetting process.
Yes.
And it was a month of coordination thing, or day of coordination really. And it was, as she started planning and kind of getting into the weeds of it, it came to be that they weren't necessarily the best fit for each other. And, obviously Sammy kind of powered through that.
Right.
She's amazing, but, and continued to do a good job. But, got to wedding day, and 200 guests showed up when there's only supposed to be 100. And it was not the fault of Sammy, but it was just, it wasn't a good fit.
It was definitely a challenge.
It was a challenge. And that's when we came back from that wedding. That's when it was the discussion of, how do we find the right couple? How do we make sure that the other vendors that you're working with at Something Perfect are going to be, are going to be professionals? And that's how it all really spurred from.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's the thing, because let's realize it. Clients and couples want to know why we have 25-page contracts, because every wedding has a Susie clause. Every wedding has a Mark clause. There's a clause that something happened at every wedding that we now need to cover our butts with.
That's right.
As wedding vendors, we're either going to sink together or we're going to rise together. And it's, if one person, and I mean, I really stress that to you engaged couples that listen, and you guys hear me preach it, you can pick out the people that have the most beautiful websites, that have the most beautiful florals, that have the most beautiful looking food, but you do not know what it's like to work with them on that day. And some of us may never work with these vendors ever again, and we may only have them one time. So when we do referrals, and as vendors, when I say XYZ is who I choose to work with, it's the equivalent of a client coming to your publication and saying, I know this is safe. This person has been vetted by everybody. This is a great place for me to start. And they could actually assemble. I know we commented on one of the questions I had in the last episode. You guys commented, which is a fact. This is what the couples are finding frustration in the wedding planning. It's, where do I go? There's so much overload. Everybody talks about somebody. Everybody says this person's this, but then nobody's picking up their damn phone to talk to the couples, Right. So couples can come to you and have the entire planning process done by picking your entire vendors right off with what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and we try to make it as easy as possible. They get to go on and take a fun quiz and get matched to vendors, and so it kind of helps with that fit. And we just want to make it fun, and I think that's another cool thing too, is we try to provide all pro advice. So it's all written by myself and another one of my planners, and pros in the wedding market. So you're really getting advice, almost what we're listening to here in the written form, which I think is pretty cool and different because it can feel really overwhelming.
Oh, it is. I mean, that's the first thing I tell you is, and we all know, and you hear the same thing. Hey, you guys do this every weekend. We don't. And it's still overwhelming, for us, even as a vendor. And I'm sure you go through this, even running this business. If somebody reaches out to you that wants to be a vetted vendor and you reply back and then they ghost you, well, really? Then if you're ghosting fellow vendors, you're ghosting, this is how you're treating your couples. And so maybe they're not a right fit for Bustld either. And then they want to cry that they're not busy, pick up the damn phone. I mean, it's answer your phone, answer an email, well, this is why you guys have built the go-to site for planning your wedding. So couples come through. Let's kind of take our listeners through, let's just say let's go to Atlanta. So now we have a couple that's getting engaged in Atlanta. How do they find Bustld to start this process?
A lot of different ways. We do a lot of content creation that we promote, obviously through the site itself, through the major social channels, and really just try to get the word out. Instagram is something that's been very big for us in kind of getting that the Bustld name, and then subsequently our vendors' names out there. When they do come to the site, they would sign up, go through the quiz, and they would take about 10 or so questions, and it's fun, and there's pictures that they can select. It's very approachable because not everyone is in the wedding world like we are every single day. So we try to ask questions like what is your personal style, or what matters the most to you on wedding day? Is it a feature-worthy wedding, or is it, an awesome party? Things like that, very approachable things. And then once they've answered that, then they're going to be able to start to select what categories they're looking for, be it photographer, venue, caterer, what have you. And then they're able to kind of go through and sift through their top picks and start to assemble their team.
And then right there on the site themselves, they click on through those vendors, or do you guys assemble that and send something back out to the client?
No, it's actually done instantly. So as soon as they complete the quiz, we've built a matching algorithm, which is all Ryan's genius over here. And that actually instantly takes care of all of their matches. And so once they go to each page, it's sorted based on fit. So the person who's going to be, the best fit based on their answers is going to show at the top. And be one of their top matches. So, if they're looking for, like you were saying, a plantation home, they're going to be more likely to see a plantation home at the top than maybe a hotel ballroom.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And it's super important because you hear all the time from couples and vendors, right? From vendors, it's, I really want my ideal client. Not everyone's the right fit for me. And couples, the same thing. There's 400 options. I don't know how to sift through all this. And I don't know if they fit my budget.
Because they also are looking alike.
Do a lot of that work.
Exactly. Because, and I'm sure you heard that. Especially photographers, they also are looking alike after a while. I don't know who I talk to anymore, so it's a help to know, because again, they might be matched. You've done this great job to match them, but that individual vendor may be booked. So at least they have a couple other, so then they can reach out to that person and start the conversation and get that booked. Are you getting that feedback from your vendors? I'm curious if the vendors are coming back to you and saying, hey man, ever since you started this, this process and how it works, I'm seeing significant results. You're actually getting people that are clicking and having conversations. So what's the vendor's take on this wonderful thing that you created?
Yeah. And that's something that's really important for our strategy too, is that we listen. And that's something that's worked really, really well for us, and just how we kind of communicate with our vendors and couples as well. Trying to make sure we have that feedback loop so we can continue to improve. But yeah, it's been really positive. People, it feels like we've started this little movement, that we're trying to disrupt, how the status quo of all of this. And, but yeah, no, overall it's been super positive.
And so we're only print. One of the questions that, and actually it has to be a North Carolina bride, that says, will there ever be a print version of Bustld, and will there ever be wedding shows?
Sammy?
I don't know. We've definitely.
That was a great segue. Let's go to the wedding planning person and ask that question. I just did the technical side. I'm not going to get into that. So here's
it's definitely something we've considered. We've kind of dabbled in smaller, couple events. For now, we've found that a lot of our couples are really utilizing online. Yeah. I think you say it's really image driven. And that's where we've kind of put our focus. We're such a small team right now that it's probably not going to change in the near future, but maybe one day. I'm not ever going to say never.
Well, I also think too, Sam, and I think you'll agree, because the cities that you are mostly in, maybe with the exception of Atlanta, it's 95% destination. These brides are not going to fly here and go to a wedding show. Now, on the upside, that would be brilliant. I always tell destination couples, they fly in here for a weekend and then want to try to meet all of us on a Saturday when we're working. Yeah. So it's very, very hard. Hey, I'm in town, and then they're mad at the caterers because that's when they're off. Right. And so they want to come and have a trip and check out where they're going. So when you try to have a wedding show, you're getting local people that probably aren't even getting married locally. They're going somewhere else to get married anyway. So exactly. I think that's a hard thing to do, and at least in Atlanta, I do think there are Atlanta people that get married in Atlanta. Well, one, it would take hours just to go somewhere. So you're gonna be stuck in traffic. You might as well have a wedding. Maybe it'd be a drive. Maybe that's your new category: highway marriages. While you're sitting in traffic, let me officiate your wedding and be done. Don't need to go to the courthouse or anything. I'll just be done with it. So yeah,
a whole new world with Atlanta traffic.
I'm telling you. But so that's the thing. So, and I do. I think, and you're going to know this, and maybe that's more for you, Ryan. The clients and the couples that are seeking you, you're seeing just from their questionnaires and things that they are just more tech savvy. Think about it. We're getting ready to come up on the generation that's only ever held a phone in their hand, that probably doesn't even pick up magazines, unless they're sitting in the, a waiting room or something. But this generation, I think, that are going to start booking for 20, especially for 21 and 22 weddings, they've only ever had their cell phones and tablets in their hand. So, I mean, I don't know that they would be any beneficial to them if they had a print magazine in their hand versus everything that you're creating for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people it's crazy. I feel like it's just such a shift even in the last couple of years. People are just moving so much more online. Yeah. Such a big focus and, keeping the conversations online and looking for their inspiration online. It's very rare these days that we see, couples walking in with magazines, whereas it's always pulling up pictures on their phone or Pinterest. So I think that's definitely
just DMs. I mean, I book weddings straight off Instagram. I mean, it's like, hey, as I'm sitting here talking to you, one just came across asking for availability for a date, which is funny because they just look at your Instagram. They see that you travel over. They see what you do. They're not even texting is just almost gone anymore. They just want to sit here and have a conversation and DM or things like that, which is something that is great. So I that was a good question. I enjoyed that question because I figured that's something that here's somebody is asking if you're going to do that. So aside from setting yourself apart with Ryan's genius and your wedding technology, what if you had to say 3 things that set you guys apart from other message boards and online areas to go and do wedding planning, what are 3 things that you really do set you apart? And don't say Ryan and don't say Sammy because that's good. But I mean what do you think?
Yeah, I think our matching quiz is probably our number one thing, because you can go on and take a quiz. Excuse me. It's really fun and easy, and then you can instantly see the best matches for you. So I think that's the first thing. Then
vetting, knowing that you can trust that a Bustld vendor is going to deliver and show up on Saturday or Sunday, or whatever day of the week that they're going to deliver. That's definitely number 2.
And I would say the third thing is that it's really a boutique experience. So, from the fact that we have not pages and pages and pages of vendors, that we have kind of created this personalized experience for you with location and, matches and showing you different styles. So you're really getting more of this boutique one-on-one personalized experience than you would, on some of the other things out there, like you mentioned.
Well, yeah. So do you guys limit the number in each category? Like, do you say we can only have 10 caterers, we can only have 10 venues? Venues obviously are hard because that's everybody's bread and butter. But I mean, it's, every publication, anybody collecting money in the industry needs vendors or wedding venues to be participating. So do you limit the other categories?
So we really pay attention to, we don't have a set number per se, but we really pay attention to kind of supply and demand, if you will. So we want to make sure we don't have too many. It wouldn't behoove us to have 1,000 photographers and 1,000 users of the site, right?
Right.
We really try to pay attention to that. We try not to overdo it on one side versus the other.
Yeah, and I think
sadly that's the norm. Sadly, we know that photographers. It's of all the categories, it's the easiest thing. I always tell people all the time, it's the easiest way. This industry has made it too easy for photographers and videographers to just break in. And hence, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this one, but it does bring the industry down. I mean, because anybody can afford a camera now, and they're all used to the cell phones. So they show up, and sadly, I call it this, and people hear me out on the speaking circuit, I call it the Disney money. They want to come in, they'll get a wedding for $5, they'll take a wedding for $5 to $1,000, and they only want to do one, and they go off to Disney with it. And they don't sit around for the ramifications of if they don't deliver good photos or what the other vendors, thought about them. But thinking about it, if you're at that lower budget, and I am not knocking anybody's budget, but if you're hiring a $500 photographer and you have $1 million wedding, there's a problem. If you're hiring a $500 photographer and you're having a $200 wedding, it's still a problem. So when you get all these people that come in, we made it so easy for photographers to get in this industry that now you have 10,000 photographers and one hair and makeup person and one florist. So if I come to your site, I can't even get my wedding day team. And it looks like you guys make sure when a couple comes to you, they can find somebody in every category.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of add on top of that too, because we interview every vendor that's on here. So when we do come across vendors that are just getting started, and it's super common, like you said, and it's something that, I kind of feel bad turning people down,
Right.
especially when they're excited and they're getting their business started. And we're entrepreneurs at heart. That's who we are. And, I want to encourage that. But at the same time, I also know that we have to protect our couples. We also have to protect our vendors. I tend to leave those conversations with, here's how you should, these are some of the resources that I would recommend you use, like different books or, things like later.com. So you can, do posting on Instagram, and really highly encourage them to focus on that. If a photographers, try to find a good photographer and second shoot and learn from them. And we try to encourage them that way, but could not agree with you more. It's someone's wedding day. We shouldn't take it too lightly and charge,
Yeah, especially when it comes to photos, because that does stay with you forever. So
right, we're the only service, and I say this all the time too. We're the only service that actually increases in value as time goes on, because sadly, somebody in these photos will pass away. And then that photo becomes more priceless. So I always start that conversation. Don't start negotiating with me when I have a service that's only going to grow in value. It's, we all know the stories of the cake and all the decor and, even the photo booth are often just left on the table. And yet here's your photos that go with you. And even nowadays, your rings won't increase if you have gold. Who knows what that market does? But it's one of those things that I think that as vendors and couples work together and create a team, and you're offering that platform. And I love the fact that you were honest. You're an entrepreneur. Just because you get into the wedding industry doesn't mean that you should take their money. And the fact that you're taking the time to educate and say, hey, look, I'm not saying, I'm just throwing a figure out there. Instead of giving us $1,000 for a year subscription, start doing this first, because we want you to invest your $1,000 to get you going, and then come back to us. And then that $1,000 will help you book more weddings, and you'll be able to cover the cost of doing business with us. And most people don't do that. You guys, Ryan, Sammy, you know that. They're just taking a check, be on the site, and that's how it goes. And you guys are building a brand and putting your name behind the brand.
Yeah. Yep. And we want to feel confident with that. And I think it's really cool too, like being that we've been in business now for 3 years, to see some of the people, we started talking to who didn't maybe hit those requirements, who have now made an impact in the business and, come back to advertise with us. And so it's really cool to kind of see that full circle.
Oh, and that's the thing. And that starts with open, honest conversation by saying, hey, look, we want you to succeed. Here's some ways to do it, and then come back and see us. Yeah. So the people that you guys have right now as vendors, have most of them been with you for the whole gamut of the 3 years, or some come back? What's the longevity of a vendor sticking around with you guys?
Yeah, we've had pretty good retention. Obviously, with any business, some are going to come, some are going to go. But yeah, we've actually done pretty well at that.
Yeah, we have a lot of vendors in Charlotte who've been with us. Original vendors in Charlotte who've been with us since the beginning. Like
when I was driving around town showing them mock-ups of what the site was gonna look like.
It's pretty cool.
Well, that's what's interesting. You're like, hey, and that's one of the questions. I don't know if I got it sent over to you, because I try to keep everything more candid. But there is a vendor that is from Indiana that says, hey, I'm relocating my business. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in South Carolina or North Carolina. I've been in the industry for 5 years. Looks like he's a florist. Can I be in more than one of your markets? Is there, rates, information, and would I be allowed to be in one of your markets without physically having a business in those markets?
The answer, so obviously we'd have to interview the florist first.
Yep.
But if they can meaningfully service that area, yes, is the short answer. As long as they're able to, that they're willing to meet with clients. I would ask a series of questions to kind of get there, and like how they would plan to do things remotely. But yeah, absolutely. We've had vendors that are kind of in multiple markets.
Perfect. Well, I mean, because I relocated here from St. Louis, and I had to start, by coming down here and getting a few things going so I could show, and I couldn't just go and join something, because I hadn't proved myself, nor would I want to mislead anybody doing that, but I also know what it's like to start in a new market. And I know how you can continue building your business without missing a step and a beat. And because of publications like you, that's something that's going to allow me. And I'm going to tell the lovely gentleman who sent in is reach out to you. Is what I told him, reach out. see where you can fit in and what might work and get yourself in a market. So that's, so there you go, listeners. If you're going to be in one of their markets or thinking about going in, it's like I always roll back to you guys in the DMs is I'll ask this question, but I strongly suggest you reach out to them and let them know. So let's talk a little bit about submissions. How do you take submissions? Is it only paid vendors on your vetted list that can submit? Give us the process of how you guys go about showcasing all your wonderful vendors and couples.
Yeah, so we take submissions through Two Bright Lights, and then we also have a submission page directly on our website. And you do not have to necessarily be a paid vendor to submit. So we take submissions from everyone. Again, we want to showcase a really good representation of each market. So different styles, different types of weddings, different price points, different types of people. So we really want to be showing all the different things that you can have in a market. And then we'll make sure to let you know any of the vendors who are associated with that wedding who have gone through our vetting process. So at least couples know, okay, this person is a vetted vendor who, I want to reach out to from this wedding that we saw featured on Bustld.
Perfect. And Sammy, this is a great question for you as a wedding planner. And again, we're having a candid conversation.
Yeah.
Not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Please explain to our listeners, especially with somebody who has a project and company like you have, style shoots being submitted and never submitting a real wedding, and either the damage or the awareness you think that brings couples when they look through Bustld.
Yeah, so we do feature both. I think that styled shoots, I have a love-hate relationship with styled shoots.
Right.
I think it's a really cool way to show off different trends and styles that you can't necessarily, maybe you don't have couples who are ready to do some kind of crazy, when hanging installations were first coming out, we saw a lot of styled shoots with that. People weren't ready to invest in that yet. So it's like a good way to kind of see those trends. But obviously as far as quality of work, it's not necessarily indicative. You have 8-10 hours to put together one table and get the perfect shot. Whereas, on wedding day, you have 20 minutes. So it's definitely not always indicative of quality of work is my biggest thing with styled shoots.
And as a wedding planner, is that something that you kind of encourage other wedding planners? For instance, if they come to you guys and they've met your criteria, but they just don't really have enough weddings, do you encourage them to go out and get a style shoot and at least get some style shoots on so that people, when they come and look at Bustld in the different markets, can find something out about it? But you stress this is a style shoot, not an actual wedding.
Yes, I think it can be a really good way to get some good photos since we are such an image-driven platform.
Right.
That's really important. So we definitely encourage people, like Ryan mentioned, when he's talking to people who haven't quite hit our limits yet, that's something we encourage them. It's a great way to just a side effect to network with other vendors.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely a good way to kind of get your feet wet. But I would by no means say that that's, can count as a full wedding day, because it's definitely very different when it's laid back and there's no kind of emotions running in it like a wedding day is.
Yeah, I always kind of viewed styled shoots as similar to like if you were to go to like a fashion show, right? Things can be much more dramatic, and the designer can really extend their creativity out there more than they can at someone else's wedding.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've always viewed them, as a kind of outside this industry. But yeah, I think we do a pretty good job of kind of highlighting the different, like this is a shoot, this is a wedding.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing with styled shoots is that, it can be overwhelming for couples. Same thing with Pinterest, because you see this beautiful table and, perfectly put together. And when you start planning your wedding and pricing that out and realizing, oh, that's very different price point when you're putting together one table versus, 20 tables. So that's kind of another one of the bad things I think about styled shoots is it can certainly set some unrealistic expectations.
Well, exactly, because I can tell you that I get the questions and some of my questions come back. What do you do with your equipment if you're on the ocean and gets damaged? And I look at the form and go, you're getting married at a church in the middle of Oklahoma. I don't understand how that question is relevant, yet there's some place out there that is telling these people to ask your vendors these questions, and which baffles me. But I think the way that I appreciate as a vendor that you guys do, and as a senior vendor, is you'll take a styled shoot because you understand the value of showing somebody's creativity. Hey, look, I'm a florist. I can knock this out of the freaking park if you got a few zeros to add to that check. And it has to be that way. And I do think it's realistic. And you know what? You'd be surprised how many couples, and you guys aren't there to judge, nor the other vendors, that a couple might see a floral display, a hanging floral display, and figure out that they could serve tacos and margaritas and have that floral display if they wanted to do that. And if you don't give a platform for couples to see all of it, I think we're damaging the industry. I mean, I think there's room for both. I just want it always to be said, this is a styled shoot versus, hey, this is what's happening. And then along the style shoots, let's talk about diversity and inclusion. What you guys, and again, people and listeners, while I know these answers, I'm bringing these questions up to you guys. So if I say them with the tongue in cheek, you understand why. You guys show same-sex weddings. You guys let same-sex weddings apply. You do not alter or make anybody not feel bad. Is that something your vendors that you, in your questionnaire, Ryan, do they have to be open to servicing all couples, or you leave that up to the individual couple?
We leave that up to the individual vendor, but we're very inclusive. We want to showcase everything, including same-sex weddings. So we're definitely not shying away from including that in any of our imagery or on our real weddings. We encourage them because to us, we really want to support couples. We want them to be in love. We want them to find the best vendors for them. And we want them to have the best day to look back on, and anything that we can do. And even if it's in a small way with our website, we just want to be there to make that easier for them.
Absolutely.
And this is where I add, when I say diversity and inclusion, I speak to African-American couples, mixed race couples, Indian couples, all the disclaimers that go along with, I'm not just talking about a gay couple. I want everybody to be able to see themselves in the wedding world. And so, people like you guys who own Bustld, and people that want to go there and plan their wedding, I want them to be able to see themselves. And I think it's wonderful that you guys allow to do that. So that brings us kind of brings us to, in your process of how you have couples come to you and vendors that come to you, what are some of the trends that you are really starting to see in the wedding world when you guys, are showcasing weddings and things? And maybe even, Sammy, you could say trends you would like to go away and trends you would like to see come back.
I think one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing right now is color, which I personally am just really loving. Especially being in the South, we see a lot of very neutral blush weddings, and I'm loving all of the more daring colors. I've seen yellows and oranges and purples, and it's been really kind of a cool thing. We're starting to see more use of flowers in really unique ways. So I've seen them on dresses, hanging. Obviously, that's been around for a little while, but kind of just using flowers and on cakes. We were just talking to a baker about that, how people are using edible flowers now on cakes. So I think it's kind of cool and unique. And I always love anything you can do to personalize your wedding. So that's my personal favorite, is when we get really cool wedding submissions with a unique story. We just published one, and they were beekeepers, so they incorporated bees into their, not actual bees, but bee designs into their wedding. So that was really cool. So I think anything you can do to personalize and style.
Because you wouldn't have any EpiPens to pass out, because God forbid anybody can do it.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, we have one EpiPen. We all got one EpiPen. So if it gets stung, share the one EpiPen. That's the whole. Instead of having a honeymoon fund, it's like we're supplier EpiPen, so we would have bees released at our wedding.
Exactly.
Releasing some bees at your wedding. I mean, that's a whole story in itself right there. So what's some of the ones that you're just like, oh my gosh, if I have to see one more of these?
I'm personally a little bit over the rustic trend.
I knew this was going to say.
I mean, it's definitely for the right venue and the right person, but personally, that's probably on my out list. I would love to see people, even if they want to keep it in neutrals, steering clear of blush for a little while. While it's beautiful, I feel like we've seen a lot of it. So even going to more of those mauve tones, just kind of switching it up, is always keeping it fresh, is always exciting for us to look at lots and lots of weddings.
And that's one of the questions that one of our listeners sent in is, who is going through the acceptance process? Like, who is approving weddings to be submitted and stuff like that? Is it you guys? Do you guys have a team? Is it dependent on each market? And then adding to that is all the markets showing the same weddings? Are you trying to only show Charlotte weddings, Charleston weddings, Atlanta weddings, or does submissions cross all the markets?
Yeah, so all of our markets show different weddings. You can go on the site and remove the location and see everything that we
so
publish.
everything kind of comes in.
Perfect.
Yeah. And we also, on Instagram, we have a national Instagram account. So we feature some of our favorite details and our favorite weddings on that account. That is not city specific, but each market showcases their own local weddings, which is pretty cool. As far as who accepts the submissions, it's myself, and we have two other people who are members of our marketing and editorial team. So we look at all the submissions, we go through all the pictures and accept all the pictures.
It's not me.
It's not Ryan.
If it was me, it would just be a series of college football and wedding cake.
Yes,
exactly. Let's see all the food photos. This is Ryan's take on food.
Exactly.
And I'm still trying to Google mauve over here.
Exactly. How do you spell that? They dropped off the E, and you would have been able to find that pretty quick.
Exactly.
Drop off that E. Gosh, that's great. So what else is there? I'm fascinated and I'm thrilled. And I say this tongue in cheek because I think you guys know that I do know several people who have publications that are like what you guys do. I've been friends with these people for years and I know several, but you guys are doing it consistent. And while I, full disclosure, have never been, nor have I been a vendor on Bustld, I have followed you guys since your inception and just get a little bit more known from you now because I have a podcast. Other than that, I've known who you guys were and what you're doing. So I love the way that you guys are doing it. So maybe this goes to Ryan. What's some improvements? And I use the word improvements just because it's a word. What's some of the new things, without giving away trade secrets, that you want to implement and things that the tech side of you want to make even better for your couples that find you as well as your vendors?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is always improving on the algorithm and really trying to hone in on that and kind of the accuracy of it. That's something that always jumps out at me. I think always looking to add value for our couples and our vendors. So there's a number, without getting into the details,
right.
But there's a number of features that we're looking to release here by the end of the year that are they're going to be pretty cutting edge that we're excited about.
Pretty cool if you say so.
Yeah,
yourself.
I'm excited.
I want you to say that, but I would not expect anything less from you guys. But, and again, it's not sometimes always about the money. You hit the word. What value can I bring? As a couple that's looking for a wedding, tell me why I should go with you, and that's the value. And if I'm investing with you as a vendor, tell me the value that I get. Don't just give me, you're going to get 15 clicks and this and this. Tell me the value. Will I get better quality brides, better quality grooms? And then are the couples going to go, am I going to get a better quality vendor based on what you're doing? So I want you should own that and be proud of that. And is there any new markets you're going to be going into, or are you guys kind of just settled with where you are right now?
Yeah, we're definitely looking ahead at new markets. We're not totally sure where that's going to be yet,
Yep.
But that's definitely on the horizon for us as we just continue to grow, and we want to connect with even more, amazing vendors. And I think that's just one of the really cool side effects too, is that we've gotten to know some really cool people, outside of our own market, which is always nice. And we have friends now, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, it makes for good travel buddies too.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And so now listeners, if you're in Alabama and you really want to, do something, this is your opportunity to send in and let them know you want to see them in Alabama,
That's right.
And
we're diehard Alabama fans because we actually met at the University of Alabama. So
roll tide.
All right, now this interview is now officially over. This interview is now over. We're not going to be talking if you're Alabama fans. I'm going to end. We're over. It's Can't have that. Erase all that. So don't go to Alabama. No, I'm kidding.
Cut that out.
It's hilarious. I mean, you guys know this, being in Charlotte, you still get a little bit of it, but we never book fall weddings down in SEC country until the schedule is put out. And then the day that Georgia has a bye, that we'll get 75 inquiries. Or the Alabama people, when Alabama has a bye, that's the day everybody's getting married. Yep. Or the teams are playing somebody little. God forbid there's no weddings that happened in Alabama or Georgia. And they'll tell you, if we had a wedding that happened on a peak game, no guests would come.
Yeah, I believe it.
So we're having a heated discussion in the Roberts household because the schedule for 2020 just got released, and Alabama is playing Georgia on September 27th, I think, which is a primo day in the wedding world.
Yeah.
And don't add any of the hurricanes that might happen. Let's just make sure we pick that one. Well, it's like the Georgia-Florida game. It's like it doesn't amount to anything, but where I am here on St. Simon's, it's called Atlanta South. So everybody from UGA comes down here. There is none of us. It's Fret Beach. We have some 50,000 people. The island's going to sink on that one weekend. You can't get married legally. I mean, on the beach if you want to, but there are no vendors that are going to open their doors. There's no vendors that are going to be, there's no catering company, nothing. And once September gets here, September, October especially, almost every wedding has 2 big screen TVs. So down here on the island and even Savannah, if you don't have a big screen TV, I mean, they'll spend their money on a TV and forget the band and DJ. Too huge. Or I have been told, hey, we're getting married at 10 in the morning because kicks off at 3 and we got to be done with everything.
We had to get married the week before kickoff.
Yep.
So our anniversary is coming up in 11
days. Yeah.
But I mean, it's just and that's going to be fun for you guys to see too in the different markets, just the way things are different and the different trends, things that you've never even thought about. Because you got to tell me, what are you finding different in the Atlanta market versus the Charlotte market?
Ooh, good question.
I think the weddings, from what I've seen, are a lot more over the top in Atlanta than they are in Charlotte. That's one of the biggest trends I've seen as far as weddings go. And I also think
did you find that vendors in Atlanta were much faster to join and sign up with you because you're bringing some fresh air into the Atlanta market?
Yes.
Because it's a big saturated market with everybody.
Yeah, and I think the backgrounds of people, a lot of people in Atlanta have come from like corporate world, which is interesting. Corporate world turned creative, which is kind of different than it is in Charlotte.
Right, because that's where I came from.
Yeah.
And Charlotte's a growing market. I mean, that's hustle and bustle. I mean, I know plenty of people that, I recently spoke at Charlotte to some Charlotte wedding pros, and they are seeing that they are starting to get more and more destination people that are coming from our area down here that are going up because it's a 5-hour drive. It's the equivalent of Atlanta people coming down Savannah, Charleston. They can get there in a day and they can still have, quote, a destination wedding. But people that aren't looking for an ocean or a view with major water, they're heading out to Charlotte. And they are really, again, I think in the couples that I've been interviewing are definitely more of the techie and urban. And it's Atlanta with a slower pace, but they got out of Atlanta and they're going to go to Charlotte. So, I mean, you've hit some good markets that are totally different in a way to go. So maybe we're at the point where tell our listeners that are listening in, the fellow wedding pros, your heart and soul of why they should invest and get on the list to be a vetted vendor with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we really are building something different, and we're really trying to make the wedding industry better for couples and vendors. And we're doing that by listening. We're doing that by listening to our couples, listening to our vendors. The Bustld has evolved in 3 years, which seems like a long time, but not a long time because of that. So that it's really, we really are trying to build something that really just improves on kind of how couples find their vendors. It takes a lot of the stress away.
Yeah, we're really trying to be a partner for our vendors and even for our couples in a way, and trying to, just deliver a better and easier product.
Well, I mean, we have somebody who's familiar with the wedding industry and somebody on the outside. And I always say, sometimes we have to get out of this branding and this logo stuff. Go out and find somebody outside the market. Find somebody outside this industry that knows a little bit more about what's coming in, So you guys, I know you guys have, some of your podcasts and some different things like that. And you guys dive into just basic wedding education. So you guys are talking about helping with wedding budgets and helping with wedding planning. Take this opportunity right now to tell us a little bit about your podcast and where people can find that and listen. Tina will put all this in show notes, but tell us a little bit about why you guys decided that you felt that was an intricate part of Bustld.
So in our mission to always, again, provide value, and really it's how can we be in front of where couples are and where couples' attention is. Podcast is one of the newest arenas that's seeming to pop up quite a bit lately. So we wanted to test it, and it's really working well. I'm going to brag on Sammy a little bit. The name of our podcast is Every Day I'm Bustling, and I can't stop but laughing every time I say it.
Exactly. Damn day I'm bustling. There you go.
Yeah, we're in all the major podcasts. We're on iTunes and Spotify, SoundCloud. iHeartRadio, and then we also put out content on our YouTube channel that comes from the podcast as well. So if you're more of a visual learner, instead of listening, we have that available for people too. And we just want to provide easy tips of kind of how to plan your wedding and how to find the right vendor for you in the podcast.
And so that's also a benefit to your vendors too, because you're probably dropping some of their names as you're talking, and then are you guys even interviewing some of your vetted vendors that you have on your program?
Yes. We've just started doing that, and that's been a lot of fun. There's some of the ones that have like the highest energy.
Yeah, it's nice.
Exactly, because I think when you get somebody that finds the passion and knows how they want it to be, and I'm often heard saying, I think this industry is all about heart and caring. So lots of times we forget that we need to put people first before our profits. It will come. And this finding your ideal client, I think ideal client is the same as success. It's a different definition for everybody. Some people want big bank accounts and do one wedding for $1 million. Others love doing weddings so much they'll do them for $1,000 and do $50,000 a year. So I mean it falls into how we can best educate vendors, and then the vendors can better educate the couples. And then along the run, we're all win-win, because together we'll find that ideal client that will help us all grow. And again, you guys are just the platform that you guys are using and the platform that you guys are doing. I'd be interested in asking a question. Now that you're in these little different markets, is there a way that you could start up, we have Tuesdays together or some other things. Is there a way you guys could start up maybe a monthly meeting of just the people that are part of the Bustld program?
It's funny you asked that. It's definitely something we're looking into, because we've heard that from a lot of different vendors. And it's surprising how few markets have a Tuesday together.
We're spoiled.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a networking event like every other night.
Yeah, but we found that a lot of other markets aren't like that. So it's definitely something we're looking into and hoping to roll out in some form or fashion.
Well, because you guys have the education. I mean, you have both. Again, I go back to the wedding person and then somebody in the outside market that is still benefiting the wedding industry. I mean, I think it'd be great if you guys had even just once a month, change it up, have a morning, have a lunch, have an evening, and definitely be bright, broadening and horizoning everything that you want to offer. But that also brings back to the question, how much value, Ryan, do you feel you can offer if all of a sudden you had these monthly meetings and you gained 20 vendors in every category? Do you feel that value would decrease or increase?
Oh, I would think it would increase.
Right.
Right. Because then we can invest more into what we're building and doing for everybody.
And it connects everybody back together. And again,
Exactly.
It gives, because everybody, people think that sometimes if you have 20 vendors listed in the category, the odds of 15 of those people being already booked are huge. And then you want to, not that you want 500 in every category, but the people that want to be part of your program are the ones that are seeking the same goals and that you guys want to bring to. Tell more listeners what else you want to talk about as far as why you guys do what you want to do, and we'll get to a couple more questions. But from you guys, tell our engaged couples what they can be looking for, and then the vendors, and just why you guys feel that being in these different markets, it can bring everybody together.
Yeah, I think it's just a really cool way to connect online, and we try to showcase, the personalities behind the brand. That's a really big piece for us.
Yeah.
So it's not just a site. We showcase our vendors in Instagram. We write feature stories on them. We get quotes from them. They can submit blogs to us. So we really want to showcase couples, like you said, it's all about like the heart of the business. That's why most of us do the wedding, get into the wedding world. So we want to showcase that relationship. It's not just a transaction. You're not just hiring any photographer, you want to connect with them, and they're going to be with you in some of the most intimate moments of your wedding day. So we want to showcase like what that personality is. So everyone's different. And I think that to me is really cool. And from the editorial side, I love after the vendors have come on board and I get to meet them and learn their stories. It's so cool how people got into this industry and why they love to do what they do. And that passion really drives our passion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Bustld was always personal, just because this is what my wife was doing, and what she was doing, and watching her do this was incredible. And what she put together in such a short amount of time, and then to get the opportunity to work with her is pretty awesome too. Although it's hard to turn off. Yeah, I mean, with us, again, we're super passionate about, achieving our mission, which is, helping, help the right couple find the right vendor.
Well, that brings us up too, because this is an industry where we're putting people together. So, I'm sure you didn't go to every single wedding with Sammy, but now that you're a husband and wife team, you're meeting plenty of other creative wedding businesses that are also husband and wife based. That has to be a good selling point. I use the word selling point that you can explain it, but how is it working as a husband and wife team going for the same goal? I mean, we talked a little bit about dropping the E and things like that, but on a general basis in this industry that is so much about partnerships, do you think that's one of the strengths you guys have at Bustld?
Absolutely. So I remember when we were getting married, we went through a pre-marriage counseling. And one of the things that our pastor had told us was that, because you have to take this like 200 question test and thing, it was that our communication skills were exactly where you want them to be. And I think that is our special power as a couple. And then, I think, as far as how the business is run, it's a key advantage that Sammy's a planner and puts process around everything, because when there is a debate, because one person doesn't trump the other, it's right. Really, it is constant communication. But when we have to go for the referee, if you will, it goes back to our mission and our values. That's really what it boils down to. That's something Sammy put a lot of time and effort into to really instill with Bustld, and we kind of point to that to everybody, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool too, because we're so different that it's really nice, because we both have different strengths and we can kind of play on those and really utilize what each of us is good at to kind of continue to move the business forward. And
I think that's cool. How many are you still doing weddings every year, and about how many weddings are you doing, if you are?
I am. So I actually have a team now. So we do about 30 to 35 weddings a year.
Charlotte area or branching?
Yeah, mostly Charlotte. Usually do like 1 or 2 travel weddings, but mostly Charlotte. And I typically I've kind of tried to max out a few less these days. We have a 1.5-year-old now too. So I'm trying to max out around 10 to 12 a year personally.
Well, and again, keeps you in it, keeps you fresh. And I think it's one thing for vendors to hear, this is somebody who's still actively working in the industry. So that brings up one of the questions that kind of just came in over the last 20 minutes, is because I still have people sending in questions. As I understand that Sammy is a wedding planner. Are inquiries and leads that are sent in through Bustld, how are they siphoned out? I think we talked about that earlier, but maybe Sammy, I think the question would really be, if I'm a wedding planner and I sign up for Bustld, how do I know you're not taking the wedding over me?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. I'm glad you asked that. So I don't have
somebody in North Carolina, by the way, just so you know.
I don't have access to any of the data or any of the leads or any of that stuff. So it's something that I never see. I only see leads that come across to my, Something Perfect email. So all of the leads are siphoned by the couples themselves. They come on, they match, and they message the vendor or contact them directly. So it's not ever coming through me. I have no access to that kind of data.
Yeah, and the algorithm doesn't adjust for that.
Yeah, so I see that I'm showing up at the bottom a lot of times when I change my answers around and I'm testing the site. I'm like, oh, okay.
So is that how that works? Is that how it works for you? So like, for instance, I'm Susie and I'm having a wedding in Atlanta, Georgia. I type everything I'm looking for in and I check that I'm looking for all these vendors. That lead then goes to all those vendors at one time?
No, so that's an interesting question. That's something that we've had, discussions about, but right now they're able to kind of go at their leisure and kind of explore those categories. And when they go into, say, photographer, when they're ready to look for a photographer, they're able to go in and see who their top matches are. So it doesn't kind of go out that way. As of right now, we have the onus on the couple to reach out.
And that's perfect because I love that, because what it does is it narrows down. So I'm not looking based on what I said that I wanted, even though I may want something different. It's a starting point. So then from there, so when they fill those leads out, your matching technology is at least giving them the starting point for the wedding planning.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the couple can go back to and change their mind. I mean, I know from a planning perspective, I see that a lot. People come in and they think they want, a ballroom wedding, and next thing you know, they're getting married at a barn. So they can go in and change those answers and update their quiz as they go along in the planning process.
That's another thing that drives me crazy. Some of these vision boards places, like they'll sit there and they'll tell you Cathedral St. John, and then it'll be ceremony vision, and it will literally be the beach. And I'm like, so that's your vision, but realistically, you're getting married in the church. And
right.
And it's so. I think I'm such a bigger fan now of the fact that you have this matching technology, because if somebody wrote church wedding with a beach, your matching is going to give them both options. And then somebody's going to go, what's wrong with this picture?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, I don't get that, but or they do that, or they'll say, this is my vision for, here's all my colors. And you're like, but you're getting married in spring. I don't, hey, that's great. I'm all about it. But I think some of these places that these couples are filling information out are so vague that's why myself as a vendor have always been, and I, with the due respect, have always been leery about signing up with a program like you guys, is because, my God, there's no rhyme or reason. Somebody can just type whatever they want to type, and then I got to deal with somebody who is below my budget, or not even in my market, or unrealistic expectations. And then as the professional vendor that I am, I want to manage those so the industry looks good. So you have set that up and just done those leads. The next question that's here is, after the leads, so that North Carolina person, you got that one. This is actually from Mississippi. Are there ratings and reviews on your site? And if so, how are those managed?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. We do have ratings and reviews. And those come in, basically you can sign up and write a review, or you can actually have your own, as a vendor, you would have your own dedicated link that you can provide to your couples. We actually review the reviews and make sure things don't come across that maybe they didn't work together. We haven't had this happen, but I've heard horror stories of people kind of bombarding one platform,
right?
27 reviews from one couple or from one wedding. As a rule, we only allow one review per couple or per wedding. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. I mean, we actually had a bride the other day who wrote a review for a vendor, and it was a glowing review, and they gave them a 1 star. And so, we reached out and we said, hey, we're happy for you to give this 1 star. We just want to understand why, because your review is glowing. And she emailed back and said, oh my gosh, I'm horrified. I must have clicked the wrong number of stars. Please, 5 stars, 5 stars. So it's just nice to have that kind of personal review to make sure that things are lining up. Of course, we want people to know how vendors perform and have those reviews available, but we want to make sure that there's no human error.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, I'm very blessed to have a lot of 5-star reviews, but I always tell people I'm not perfect. That there's their interpretation of me. I like to see, especially if I'm doing hotels or things like that. I don't disregard a 3-star if I read the comments, because there's other things that could have happened. But I like a system, and this industry I think needs to improve. And maybe this is something, you, Ryan, they come up with. I would like to see that if one person failed to do their job, we weren't all held accountable. For instance, if the power goes out in a venue, I don't think we all should get a 1 review. I think that it should be, hey, I'm really sorry, and I don't know. And again, this is very vague. I don't know that I would want to review somebody. There has to be a reason the power went out. Now, if it happens all the time, there's a reason. But, again, don't be a jerk when you're reviewing vendors. We're all human and things happen. But I like the fact that you will allow a 3-star to come through and let it be validated. And then are you allowing somebody to get, say, a 3-star? And then you're allowing your vendor to comment on 3-star. So can vendors comment? And then it kind of goes into, do you guys reach out like you just did and say, hey, this wasn't necessarily the venue's fault or something. Try not to be too mean about this. And do you guys remove reviews if it's blatantly horrible?
So the first part of that question is yes, we'll let any review come through as long as they work together and it's honest. As far as the commenting, that is something that it's on the roadmap that we're going to add. It's just something that we don't have today.
Right. Do you think that's important out of curiosity? What do you think?
I do, because it provides context.
Right.
It's just something that there's, we're a small team, so there's only so many things that we can do at one time, but it is something that is important because again, it does help provide context, because if someone writes you a 1-star and it doesn't, we've all seen them, right? Where just
right.
It's coherent, it doesn't make sense. And then someone comes back and has an articulate response to that, it almost makes that 1-star now a 6-star, right? You answer it in the right way. So
that's what I'm saying. Like if somebody writes, hey, I really hated XYZ venue, their electricity went out during the thunderstorm. I don't think that's fair to write a 1-star review.
Right.
It went out. So then you're able to comment, hey, I'm really sorry about that, but act of God, the entire town went out of, so I mean, no matter where you had your wedding at tonight, you would have had no power,
Exactly.
That kind of thing. So that's good. So you guys are at least monitoring that. And that's kind of the next question that came through with that from somebody in North Carolina is, do you have removal of vendors that are reported to you for doing poorly or reported by other vendors doing poorly, not just couples? So when it comes down to review, do you guys obviously sometimes tell vendors they can't be a part of your program anymore if something drastically happened or they offended somebody or something?
Well, knock on wood, luckily we haven't had any situations like that yet. But yeah, I mean, if something came across and it was really outrageous, it would definitely be something we would want to review at that point.
Absolutely.
Because we definitely want to make sure that people on our site are the best of the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's only fair. I think as vendors, if we were working with somebody 3 times in a row that failed to deliver a cake, and I can tell you that story, literally 3 weekends in a row, 3 weekends in a row.
Oh my gosh.
And the comment always was, the first time they were 45 minutes late and we were already in the room setting up. The second time was, oh my God, Bobby, can you please call them? Because maybe they'll answer you. And I'm like, God forbid they've been killed in a car accident. I mean, I'm doing all the, let's give them a chance, but nobody's answering on the cell phones. Nobody's answering at the shop. When they did show up, they showed up and said, I did not realize that traffic was going to be that bad. We left 3 hours ago. Okay, really? And then the following week, I just had a hunch feeling when I went back in to photograph the room and the cake wasn't there. I'm like, oh my God, this is not happening again. And the venue person came out and said, hey man, we've been having problems. Oh my God, thank heaven it's not just me. I've been having problems too. And sure enough, they showed up. We already went to dinner and the toast. And then they come in and they want to put their cake up and do all these flowers. And then we're all in the way.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
So at some point I brought up to a certain place, as a vendor, I can write this review and we can all write something, but you're going to be taken tongue in cheek maybe with it. But there has to be some sort of code that you just don't do this to each other. I mean, if you're in a car wreck, my God, I will go to Publix and get a cake and send you flowers. I mean, make sure you're okay, but let's move on and figure out how to get a cake here. But to be late 3 times in a row and to be so nonchalant, I think if I'm paying to be part of Bustld and I had a vendor that did that, I would want to reach out to you guys and say, hey, we can no longer suggest this person and bring it to your attention. Not that you can really do anything about it, but I think it validates my being part of the Bustld team. Does that make sense?
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely something we would want to know. I mean, like you said, you're not always, there's times when maybe little things happen, or maybe you were in a car accident. Of course we would understand that, but 3 weekends in a row like that would definitely be something we would take and not want them to be on our site anymore, because it's obviously not a good representation of our brand.
Exactly. And you're paying, and I don't get it, because you're paying money to do stuff, and you've got your money. And I did say to her the third time, that name better be damn well be right on this cake. That's all I got to tell you. You better not have delivered the wrong cake.
Exactly.
We have rejected vendors before coming on to Bustld for things like that.
Yeah, things we know about from other vendors.
From feedback. Yeah.
Right. And at least you probably have asked the people about them before you can refuse it. I mean, and that's just this industry, sadly. I mean, you're only as good as your last wedding, as they say, and how you treat and work with people go far beyond the product that you're delivering. I mean, you have to be a team player. We all have to be able to do our jobs for the goal of our client. And, again, we're going to rise together, sing together, Yeah. So one of the last questions that we got, and then I'll let you guys kind of wrap up with some other comments, is, do you ever hire salespeople? And I happen to know that's true because of your Instagram.
That's right. Yes, we do. We're actually in the process of hiring a salesperson right now. So yeah, we're a small team. We're 5 right now. And just, always looking for really awesome talent to help us with our mission. Anyone who's dedicated to our mission and can help us move that forward, we're always looking for that. Yeah,
it's energetic and entrepreneurial, and it's willing to change.
Yeah.
And like on a dime, it's an exciting place to work, for sure.
And Ryan is a bit of a sales genius. So in addition to tech, so it's pretty cool to watch salespeople kind of train with him and everything.
And Ryan, are you looking for outside salespeople? So for instance, if I was a Bustld vendor, would I be considered to work on that job if I had a paid category with you guys?
Like as a Also,
for instance, if I wanted to come and work with you guys, but I still was listing Bobby Rink Photography, would I be able to come and be a salesperson for you?
Yeah.
I don't see why not.
Yeah. Yeah, we love it when there's people who have some sort of...
If you're throwing your hat in the ring, Bobby, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, exactly.
I have been told that people do listen to what I say, and I have been told that if Bobby says to do this, you just do this. So knock on wood, at 37 years in this industry, people actually still listen to me. So I take that as a compliment all the time when I do something.
Yeah, we love it when people have like some tie to either the wedding world or catering world or something along those lines. And then, we also have our staff work on weddings so that they understand what vendors are going through.
We require everyone on the Bustld staff to work at least one wedding so they know what Saturday feels like.
Yeah.
The drinking that goes along afterwards and the sleeping till noon, the wedding hangover has nothing to do. Well, I think that brings up, we talked a little bit before we got to recording, and I would love to have you guys' take on this. We're talking about economy, and we're talking about hiring and being small business owners. We always hear in the wedding industry that election years are always hard for booking, that the year that there's an election, especially if we think there's going to be a shift change in the White House, and we don't get to get political here, but it's always hard. People are worried about it. And then we start working about things that happened like back in 2007 and 2008. I mean, I think, you guys were around in the industry enough to know, Sammy, perhaps you can, add to this, but I remember coming off 2002 and 2002 and 2003, having great years. I mean, made the most money that I had made in my career, and then tanked in 2005 when everybody put their weddings on hold and nobody was getting married because nobody was worried about their 401ks, and was actually told, hey, my dad and mom asked me to wait. It's their 401k. They're hoping it kicks back. So here we are in the last couple of days where the economy is struggling and the stock market's crashing and all these things, stock crashing in the loose term. But now people are going on the news circuit saying, hey, this could be the, preference of something that could happen. This wedding industry has always been said to be recession proof. What you guys' take on that? Because now you're coming from it, Sammy, as a wedding vendor, but also now owning something that that takes money from other vendors and is servicing them. So you now have both views of that. Like, so what do you think about the wedding industry being economy proof?
I think I'll let Sammy answer as a wedding planner, but from like a Bustld perspective, when you look back at the data of what happened in 2007 and 2008, I mean, the total spend for a wedding did drop quite a bit. But it's people were still getting married and people were still spending money on their weddings. So I think what you'll see happen, which is quite frankly true of any industry, is that the cream of the crop will still, survive, possibly thrive. And a lot of the people that are kind of on the fringes may kind of fall out and go do something else. But I think that's not just true of the wedding industry. It's not true.
I think if you know how to adapt to the situation, and we all know that back in those days, wedding venues drastically reduced their rates in order to fill up their rooms, when the rest of us then didn't so much have to drop our rates because people now could afford it, and we continue to go through. But that is, something to consider is, I would hate to, I come to you and I'm like, man, Bustld's made me all this money. I'm booking all these weddings and all of a sudden nobody's getting married, but I don't want to stop advertising because you guys already know you guys enough to know that you're going to be pushing different revenue streams and different ways to keep your business running during that. And Sammy, you found that, the same thing happens. Budgets increased in some areas, but increased in other areas, and they just changed their way they wanted to spend their money.
Yeah, definitely. They change the way they want to spend their money or cut back on the guest count. I mean, I'm even starting to see that now where people are moving more towards smaller bridal parties and smaller guest count overall, more intimate weddings. So people definitely still spend, but just in different ways, like you said.
Exactly. And I think that I'm loving these smaller weddings. I really am enjoying these 35 to 50 people. And I'm finding that down here in coastal Georgia, they're going from a single day to actually hiring me for the weekend. So it's a wedding weekend. So I'm actually making more money with less people because they want the experience. And that, to me, that's just that Z generation. The millennials were all about me, but the Z generation wants the experience. So they're hiring experienced vendors, and then they want those experienced vendors to provide an experience and bring something different, unlike their friend's wedding, and they're wanting to spend the whole weekend. And they're at 50 people, they're able to have a dinner, a party on Friday night or whatever, and then they're able to have brunch on a Sunday. And so they're giving their people a true wedding weekend. And I am loving that down here. And Charlotte's got to be doing the same thing. Atlanta, I think, will get there eventually. I think Atlanta still is because it's just, again, saturation there. But I'm loving seeing that trend.
I love it. I think it's so fun. And everyone's coming and traveling. So why not make a whole weekend out of it and just enjoy each other's company and not just try to squeeze it all into, a 4 or 5 hour event.
Just have it as, hey, these are my mom's friends. I don't know who they are. So what are you doing, Bobby? Can I sit here with you?
Exactly.
And that happens. I mean, I've had plenty of people that I've, went out for 5 seconds to go outside and take a breath. And the couple come out. I'm like, oh God, you want more photos? Great. Yay. Smile. And they're like, oh no, we're just going to sit out here with you for a minute. We don't know any of those people. I'm like, what do you mean? They go, oh, that's my whole entire parents. Again, it goes back to this is my mom's wedding. I'll have one when I have a daughter, that kind of thing, but it's, I was curious on you guys' take on that. Cause like I said, as now you're small business people who are also trying to hire people and keep employees going, but then you also are, as a wedding planner, trying to book and keep weddings moving forward too. So, tell everybody where they can find you guys at. Again, Tina will link all this back in the show notes, but in closing, just let our listeners know, where they can find you, how they can find you, and how excited you are to work with them and vice versa. And just anything else you want our listeners to know about the wonderful world of Bustld.
Yeah. So you can find us on our website at bustld.com. Remember, there's no E. And you can find us on Instagram. Our national Instagram is at Bustld. And then we also have local Instagrams as well that you can check out for the markets that we service.
And again, we'll have all those listed. And so, Fabbo listeners, when you talk to these guys, make sure you let them know that you listened here and heard them. And don't forget to drop Be Fabbo Podcast in there when you talk to them, because that's, again, how we as small business owners want to keep connecting you guys all together. So I am thrilled you guys took the time with me today. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to watch your story keep growing. I'm a big fan of yours and here to help in any way. And listeners, I hope some of you guys in the Atlanta market there take advantage of joining their new team there, and Charlotte, everywhere else as well. But I know there's a lot of wedding pros at Atlanta that are looking to make some changes. So here's an opportunity for you. So thank you guys so much for spending time with us. And listeners, have a great week. Remember, it's a privilege and an honor to do what we do. Go out and have a Fabbo week, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, Sammy and Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We hope these conversations will take you into your wedding weekend with a little more confidence, proud of what you do, and how you serve your clients. Maybe you even picked up a business tip or two. Till next time, be Fabbo.